Zynga is one of those hot stocks, social media stocks, for those of you who play Farmville or some of these other crazy online games. Ralph Winkler is taking a look at Zynga's recent earnings, and he's got some, I don't know what to say. Good news.
Mostly looking at their stock compensation
you're looking at
lately.
An interesting point here, which is the company can be
money
doing
that's
well.
made in Silicon Valley tends to stay in Silicon Valley.
Yeah, I was about to say, so even though the earnings were kind of good, one of the things now that it's a public company that you begin to realize is how much of the profits are going to the employees.
For Zynga, it's a ton.
Yeah.
So, of course, they reported $600 million of stock compensation expense for last year.
Right.
Huge number. $530 million of that was in the fourth quarter. And they said, look, part of that is because previous grants couldn't be recognized until we had our IPO, just due to the terms. Problem is they actually still have a whole bunch of stock comp coming. This year they anticipate another 400 to 400 million. That's enough to more than basically knock their operating income into the red.
But this isn't unusual for Silicon Valley companies, though, is it?
No, well, I guess that's part of the issue, right?
I mean, it's part
Facebook's another big one. Facebook has in their filing, page 48, they say we expect $463 billion over 2 years of stock compensation expense, and that's an amount that doesn't include new hires.
Right.
Most likely. So we've got that could be even higher. Now they have a bigger cushion.
Right. Do you think investors, though, understand? I mean, I would say that a lot of the experienced tech investors out there, large institutions, they get. I'm sure they appreciate your cogent analysis that you wrote about today in the Herd on the Street. They understand the way stock comp works, right? I mean, they understand that, right? So do they get freaked out when they read your piece about how much of the stock-based comp is going to Zynga and Facebook employees?
I don't think any of them are surprised. Look, that we've got a system where most of these companies have an adjusted EBITDA number that backs out non-cash charges like stock comp, right? So we have it basically, in English, an earnings number that backs out stock comp.
Right.
Facebook actually, this is true for, by the way, Zynga, LinkedIn, and Groupon, for instance, all have such a number. Facebook doesn't.
Right. They tend to tell it like it is, or more or less like it is.
Facebook counts it in its operating income and isn't trying to sell you on a non-GAAP number.
So here we have is your chart, which basically says that, hey, these are big numbers. We're talking about numbers that are approaching, well, in the case of Facebook, over $1 billion. In the case of Zynga, which only has a market cap of $8 or $9 billion. You're talking about $500 million a year in stock.
So the other thing with Facebook, at least with Facebook, Facebook is not only bigger in terms of operating income and profit to absorb this, they're also a much larger company.
Let's step back about Zynga, which is a newly public company. I will express and have expressed some skepticism about Farmville and some of these games and their ability to make money. Do you think Zynga is living up to its IPO hype, or do you think it still has a lot to prove?
Has a lot to prove. Look, they're dependent on Facebook for nearly all of their revenue. Also, some of their latest games haven't been as big hits as some of the old ones. Cityville is the famous one. So the big.
Now, did you ever play Farmville?
I tried Cityville.
You tried Cityville.
I was able to do it for about 15 minutes. It's not my cup of tea.
Not your cup of tea. You didn't buy any virtual
shovel
very few
for the
of the
people.
On
very
farm.
few of the people, single-digit percentage, actually pay Zynga money to play the games. But the thing that's tricky for Zynga, they've had an advantage on the Facebook platform because being the dominant gamer, the game company, they could promote new games through their old games to their existing users. Well, some of the newer games, while reaching millions of users because they have that advantage, aren't growing as much as say Cityville or Farmville.
A final question for you. When I look at a company like Zynga, is there some reason why I should look at it any differently than other hits-based video games like Electronic Arts or Activision? I mean, they are all very hits-based. They're like the old Hollywood studios.
And your point is, how do you put an earnings multiple?
Electronic Arts share price has been all over the place in the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, sometimes when they have a big hit, they do well, and they don't. Why would Zynga should it be any different?
I don't think so. I think they would. Some people would have said, look, they had this advantage on Facebook specifically, where it was almost they can pretty much guarantee a hit by being able to market one game to another game, which is why they're still a sizable company, right? But at the end of the day, you're exactly right. If I have to rely on hits to drive my bottom line, it's not a recurring bottom line necessarily.
Right.
Am I willing to put as high as
I'll tell
an
you
earnings
what-
multiple
I'll
on a
tell you
company
what-
that doesn't recur
I'll
earnings
tell you
as well?
that stock-based comp, that better not be that recurring that often. Thank you very much, Rolf Winkler.